Hank Mercer had fixed everything in Millfield at least once: broken fences, cracked foundations, damaged hearts after Vietnam. His toolbox held solutions to problems that seemed impossible. But that humid Saturday morning at First Methodist Church, kneeling beside an old quilting frame, he discovered something his tools couldn't repair: a secret. Chapter 1. The humidity hit Hank Mercer like a wet blanket the moment he stepped out of his truck at First Methodist Church, 7:30 on a Saturday morning in August, and already the air felt thick enough to swim through. He grabbed his worn Craftsman toolbox from the bed, same one his old man had passed down in '73, and headed for the Fellowship Hall's side entrance. "Hank, thank God you're here." Elaine's voice carried that particular tone she used when organizing things, the one that made volunteers jump like they were back in basic training. "The quilting frame's gone all cattywampus again." His wife of 23 years stood in the center of the Fellowship Hall, directing traffic like a general marshalling troops. Tables here, chairs there, windows cracked just so for the crossbreeze that never quite materialized. The annual Quilters Guild fundraiser was her baby, her chance to shine as chapter president, and she wore the responsibility like a crown. "Morning to you, too," Hank muttered, already moving toward the problematic frame. The old maple beast had been donated by the Steinbeck family back in '87, when their matriarch passed. Built solid, but time had warped the rails and loosened every joint. One corner dipped low, making the whole thing look like a ship listing to starboard. He dropped to one knee beside it, feeling the familiar pop in his left one, Vietnam's lasting gift, along with the occasional nightmare and an aversion to fireworks. The wrench fit perfectly over the first bolt, muscle memory from 40 years of fixing things taking over. "We need this absolutely perfect," Elaine said, hovering nearby. "The heritage quilt we're raffling is worth at least $3,000, hand-stitched by 5 of our best quilters over 6 months. Hank grunted acknowledgement, focused on the frame. First leg adjusted. Second leg. As he loosened the third bolt, shifting his weight, something underneath the frame scraped against the linoleum with a hollow thud. A wooden donation box, about the size of a shoebox, had been tucked up under the frame's crossbeam. The impact popped its brass hasp open, contents spilling across the floor in a small avalanche of green bills and paper. "Oh my goodness." Eden Frost, the church secretary for longer than anyone could remember, scrambled over with surprising agility for a woman pushing 70. "That's the petty cash box. I wondered where it went." Hank's hands moved automatically, helping gather the scattered bills, mostly 5s and 10s, a few 20s. But his eyes caught on the other items that had tumbled out. A Cardinal Motel key sleeve with Room 12 scrawled in blue ink. A receipt from Giovanna's Italian Bistro, dated 3 Tuesdays back, total $127.43, marked Guild Dinner 2 Persons, and most interesting of all, a City of Millfield building inspection form, signed D. Rusk with yesterday's date, for an address Hank knew hadn't seen work in 6 months. Dale Rusk, the city's chief building inspector, husband to Jade, father to 2 teenage boys, and coincidentally, the man who'd been failing Hank's lumberyard expansion for increasingly creative reasons. While Eden counted bills, $63 exactly, praise the Lord nothing's missing. Hank palmed the motel key sleeve and inspection slip. Old habits from reconnaissance patrols, the ones where you noticed everything and said nothing until you understood what you were seeing. "Here, let me help you with that," he said to Eden, passing her the cash while she fussed with her metal lockbox, the one she guarded like it contained nuclear codes. He returned to the frame, tightening bolts with deliberate care. The heritage quilt was already stretched across it, a masterpiece of interconnected patterns in blues and creams. As he worked, his fingers found something else, delicate initials hand-stitched into the binding edge. D.E. in pale blue thread, nearly invisible unless you were looking. "Beautiful work," Willowheart said, appearing at his elbow. She'd been Elaine's quilting lieutenant for 15 years, the kind of friend who knew where all the bodies were buried, but kept her mouth shut out of loyalty. Though whoever did those initials was being a bit cheeky. DE could stand for anything. Definitely expensive. Maybe? She laughed, but Hank's jaw had gone tight the way it did when his squad's point man would hold up a closed fist, signaling danger ahead. D.E. Dale and Elaine? All done, he announced, standing carefully. The frame sat level now, solid as the day it was built. Should hold through the raffle. Elaine swept over, running her hands along the quilt's edge with proprietary pride. Her fingers hesitated for just a heartbeat over the initialed section, then moved on. Perfect. Thank you, honey. But she wasn't looking at him when she said it. Her eyes had drifted to the donation box Eden was now securing in the supply closet, and her fingers, the ones he'd watched fidget through 1,000 nervous moments, drummed against her thigh in that telltale pattern she did when something had caught her off guard. I'll grab more chairs from storage, Hank said, needing space to think. The hallway leading to the storage room was dim and cool, fluorescent lights humming their familiar tune. He pulled out the inspection form, studying it in the harsh light. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m. yesterday, but Dale's city truck had been parked at Mel's diner from lunch until past 3:30. Hank had seen it himself while loading lumber, had even made a joke to his yard manager about city employees and their 2-hour lunch breaks. So how had Dale inspected a property across town at 2:47? Hank? Elaine's voice drifted from the fellowship hall. The Brennan family just arrived with their covered dishes. He folded the inspection form carefully, tucked it back in his pocket with the motel key sleeve. 23 years of marriage, 23 years of Chantilly perfume on her pillow, pot roast on Sundays, and those little notes in his lunchbox. But this morning, underneath that familiar perfume, he'd caught something else when she'd brushed past him. Something masculine. Something wrong. The storage room held 24 metal folding chairs, the kind that pinched your fingers if you weren't careful. He grabbed 4, then 4 more, making multiple trips to avoid conversation. His mind worked better when his hands were busy, cataloging data like he used to track enemy movements in the jungle. Tuesday evenings. Elaine had guild committee meetings every Tuesday evening for the past 4 months. Sometimes they ran late. Sometimes she came home flushed and chatty, talking too fast about fabric choices and raffle logistics. Sometimes her hair was different than when she'd left pulled back when it had been down, or vice versa. The fellowship hall filled with volunteers as the morning progressed. Meredith Olson arranging baked goods on the sale table, the Johansson sisters setting up their famous jewelry display, Pastor Martinez's wife organizing the children's craft corner, normal people doing normal things on a normal Saturday, while Hank's world tilted on its axis. "Excuse me, I need some air," Elaine announced suddenly, her phone buzzing in her hand. She glanced at the screen, and the color drained from her face like water from a busted pipe. "It's just so humid in here." She pushed through the side door, phone already at her ear. Hank positioned himself by the coat rack, a ridiculous spot in August, but it gave him a clear view through the door's window. Elaine paced in the parking lot, one hand gesturing while she talked. The door wasn't quite latched, and fragments of her voice drifted back. "Room 12. Can't today. Later. They found the—" She turned, and Hank busied himself straightening coat hangers that didn't need straightening. When he looked again, she was walking toward her Buick, still talking, her free hand running through her hair in that way she did when overwhelmed. "Everything all right?" Willow appeared beside him, holding 2 cups of coffee. She offered him one, her eyes following his gaze to the parking lot. "Fine," he said, accepting the coffee. It was black, no sugar, exactly how he'd taken it since the army. Willow knew things, lots of things. "Just checking the weather." She sipped her own coffee, watching Elaine's animated conversation through the window. "Weather's been unpredictable lately. Storms coming from unexpected directions." They stood in comfortable silence, 2 people who'd known each other long enough to communicate without words. Finally, Willow patted his arm, a gesture so gentle it nearly broke something inside him, and walked away. When Elaine returned, her cheeks were flushed and her excuse was ready. My sister, you know how she gets about planning Mom's birthday party. Every detail has to be perfect. Her mother had been dead for 6 years. Sure, Hank said, his voice steady as his hands. Family's important. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of preparation. Tables arranged and rearranged, quilts displayed on portable racks. The cash box for the raffle tickets positioned just so, with Eden standing guard like a sentinel. And through it all, Hank watched his wife of 23 years with new eyes, seeing a stranger wearing familiar skin. At noon, when the first customers began arriving for the fundraiser, Dale Rusk walked in with his family. His boys immediately gravitated toward the food table while Jade admired the quilts. Dale himself made a beeline for the heritage quilt, studying it with an intensity that seemed excessive for a man who'd never shown interest in needlework. Incredible craftsmanship, he said to Elaine, who'd materialized beside him. Must have taken real dedication. All those late hours, secret meetings to get it just right. We do what we must for the things we care about, Elaine replied, her voice carrying an undertone Hank had never heard before. Dale's hand brushed the quilt's edge, his fingers finding those same initials Hank had discovered. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. Worth every sacrifice, I'd imagine. Everyone, Elaine agreed. Hank stood 10 feet away, invisible as furniture, the inspection form and motel key sleeve burning holes in his pocket. The familiar sounds of the fundraiser laughter, chatter, the clink of coins in collection jars seemed to come from very far away. He was back in the jungle, behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence for a battle no one else knew was coming. The war had taught him patience, how to wait, how to watch, how to survive betrayal when it came from the last place you'd expect. He had work to do. Chapter 2. Monday morning arrived with the kind of oppressive heat that made dogs lie in the shade and old folks stay indoors. Maggie Chu pulled into Mercer Hardware's parking lot at 8 sharp, her 10-year-old Honda Civic announcing itself with a subtle squeal of belts that needed replacing. She gathered her leather accounting satchel, a gift from her late husband Paul before the cancer took him, and headed for the back office, her expression troubled in a way that made Hank's stomach tighten before she even spoke. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. "About the Guild's books." Maggie had been keeping books for half of Millfield's small businesses since Paul died 8 years ago. She had a gift for seeing patterns others missed, for finding the stories numbers told when they thought no one was listening. "Eden called me yesterday," she continued, spreading bank statements across Hank's desk like tarot cards revealing a fortune. "The raffle tallies have been short 3 times in the past 2 months. She asked me to take a look, and Hank..." She paused, pushing her reading glasses up her nose. Something's very wrong. The patterns jumped out immediately once she pointed them out. Deposits that bloomed like flowers before raffle nights, only to wilt by Tuesday, then mysteriously resurrect themselves in different amounts by Thursday. Money that existed on paper but moved like smoke through the accounts. "I call it blooming and fading," Maggie explained, her finger tracking the irregular deposits. "Someone's moving money in circles, hoping the motion hides the fact that some of it disappears with each turn." Hank pulled out the inspection slip from Saturday, setting it on the desk between them. Maggie studied it, then opened her laptop with the efficiency of someone who'd adapted to the digital age out of necessity rather than choice. "Give me Dale's inspection dates for the last 6 months," she said, fingers already flying over keys. "Let's see what stories they tell." Within minutes, she'd created a spreadsheet that laid bare what Hank had only suspected. Dale's inspection schedule showed 17 overlaps with Elaine's guild calendar over 4 months. And not just overlaps, perfect synchronization. Every time Dale marked an inspection complete, Elaine's calendar showed either blank space or the vague notation of errands. "Look at this." Maggie highlighted 6 specific Tuesdays. "Guild funds withdrawn for supplies, but no receipts. And here," she pulled up another screen, "Dale's inspection reports for the same dates, all signed off within minutes of the withdrawals." "You got a cousin works at City Hall, don't you?" Hank asked, though he already knew the answer. "Thomas Pike, Records Department." Maggie was already reaching for her phone. "He owes me from when I helped with his divorce papers. Made sure his ex didn't get the fishing boat." While she made the call, Hank studied the spreadsheet. Each Tuesday told the same story. Money moved, inspections passed, and somewhere in between, his wife of 23 years had built herself a secret life. An hour later, Hank stood in City Hall's basement, the fluorescent lights making everything look sickly and pale. Thomas Pike sat at his government-issued metal desk, surrounded by filing cabinets that probably hadn't been properly organized since the Reagan administration. He was eating a bologna sandwich that looked as sad as his surroundings, white bread and yellow mustard, not even any lettuce. 14 inspections, Thomas whispered, even though they were alone. All marked complete within 5 minutes of request. That's not physically possible, Hank, not unless Dale's got a teleporter. The photocopies came out warm from the ancient Xerox machine, that distinctive smell of hot toner filling the air. Thomas slipped them into a manila envelope marked hardware invoices in case anyone asked. The addresses are the best part, Thomas continued, his voice dropping even lower. 3 are vacant lots, have been for years. 2 were demolished last spring, and this one? He pointed to an address on Maple Street. That's been a Dairy Queen since 1994. Hank's phone buzzed. Clark Ellery from First County Bank, his name appearing on the screen like an omen. Hank? You need to come by. There's something you should see. The drive to the bank took 7 minutes. Hank knew because he counted them, needing something concrete to focus on while his world unraveled in slow motion. Clark met him at the side entrance, away from the lobby's prying eyes. I shouldn't be showing you this, Clark said, leading him to a small conference room. But I've known you since high school, and what I'm seeing. He shook his head, pulling out a folder thick with statements. The Guild's debit card transactions painted a picture clear as spring water. Charges at 2 fabric stores 40 miles away, except both had closed 6 months ago. Clark had called to verify, speaking to confused former employees who confirmed the closures. But this is what really caught my eye, Clark said, highlighting entries with a yellow marker. Romano's Wine Bar every Tuesday for 2 months, always between 2 and 4 p.m. And here, his marker squeaked against the paper, Cardinal Motel, $47.99. That's their afternoon rate. How do you know that? Hank asked. Though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. Clark's face reddened. My brother's divorce. His wife's lawyer subpoenaed records. Same motel, same rate. They call it an afternoon rest special. The patterns lined up like soldiers at attention. Every Tuesday when Elaine claimed guild meetings, every inspection Dale passed without visiting, every dollar that disappeared from the guild's coffers, it all led to room 12 at a motel that rented by the hour. I need copies, Hank said quietly. Already made them. Clark pushed a second folder across the table. Hank, I'm sorry, I truly am. Back at the hardware store, Hank called his son Logan. The boy, though at 32, he wasn't really a boy anymore, ran his own contracting business, having learned the trade at his father's knee. Dad, everything okay? Logan's voice carried the concern of a son who rarely heard from his father during work hours. Need you to pull all the building permits where we supplied materials this year. Specifically, anything Dale Rusk inspected. There was a pause. Dale's been failing my permits left and right lately. What's going on? Just pull them. Come by the store when you're done. While he waited, Hank helped customers, his body on autopilot while his mind processed information. Ben Trawler needed deck screws. The widow Patterson wanted help selecting paint for her shutters. Normal people with normal problems, while his foundation cracked beneath him. Logan arrived at 4, a stack of permits in hand and thunder in his expression. Dad, Dale passed the Riverside Apartments balcony that I personally failed for insufficient support beams. I drove by every day for a week, waiting to see the repair crew. No one ever showed. What else? The Henderson's deck addition. I told them the joists were undersized, wouldn't hold the load they wanted. Failed it on a Friday. Dale passed it the following Tuesday. No modifications made. Tuesday. Always Tuesday. Maggie worked late that evening, her calculator clicking like typewriter keys as she tallied numbers. Eden had provided the guild's internal records, kept in her meticulous handwriting, everything accounted for down to the penny, except for the gaps that coincided with Elaine's signatures. $7,640, Maggie announced finally. That's what's missing over 6 months. And look, she pointed to her screen. 3 specific Tuesday afternoons where guild funds were withdrawn and motel charges appear within the same hour. The evidence was overwhelming, yet Hank felt oddly calm. It was like being back in the war, when the waiting ended and the shooting started. There was almost relief in knowing the enemy's position. That evening, he sat in his leather recliner pretending to watch the Royals lose to Cleveland. Elaine was in the shower, her phone left charging on the nightstand. When it buzzed with a voicemail notification, he didn't hesitate. He played it on speaker, volume barely audible over the game. A man's voice, smooth as aged whiskey, filled the room. About the binding tonight, can we make it tighter? Same place as last week. Delete this. Dale's voice. Binding, being Quilter's terminology, twisted into something intimate and ugly. Same place as last week, which would have been Tuesday, when Elaine had come home late claiming the meeting ran long. Hank deleted the voicemail, placed the phone exactly as it had been angled slightly toward the lamp, charging cord draped just so, and returned to his game. The Royals pitcher walked another batter. The manager came out to argue. Life continued its patterns while his broke apart. Elaine emerged in her terry cloth robe, the one he'd bought her 3 Christmases ago. She hummed something maybe from church, maybe from the radio as she rubbed lotion on her arms. The same routine she'd followed for 2 decades, except now he wondered whose touch she was trying to wash away or preserve. Guild meeting tomorrow, she said, not looking at him. Might run late. We're discussing the fall festival preparations. Sure, he replied, eyes on the television. Take your time. She paused in the doorway, perhaps hearing something in his tone. But then the moment passed, and she headed to the bedroom. A few minutes later, the light went out, leaving Hank alone with the blue glow of the television and the weight of knowing. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through the photos Maggie had sent. Bank statements, inspection reports, timestamps that proved his wife was a liar and a thief. Tomorrow was Tuesday, another guild meeting, another afternoon at the Cardinal Motel, another set of failed inspections that would mysteriously pass. But tomorrow, Hank would be ready. The Royals lost in the 10th inning on a passed ball. Hank turned off the television and sat in the darkness, planning his next moves like a general preparing for war. The enemy had revealed their position. Now, it was time to begin the siege. Chapter 3. Thursday's Chamber of Commerce breakfast drew its usual crowd to the VFW Hall. 200 of Millfield's finest citizens, if you defined finest as anyone who could afford the $20 admission and tolerate rubber eggs with weak coffee. Hank arrived early, choosing his seat with tactical precision center table, clear sight lines to both the podium and the back exit. Wyatt Boone sat to his right, still bearing himself like the staff sergeant he'd been in '69. 3 other veterans filled out their table, men who understood that some battles were fought with bullets and others with words, but both required the same careful planning. Dale Rusk stood at the podium in his best blue suit, the one that pulled slightly at the shoulders, trying to contain his ex-athlete's body gone soft. His PowerPoint blazed to life on the pull-down screen. Safe structures, safe families, code enforcement excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, Dale began, his voice carrying that particular tone of bureaucratic self-importance. Millfield's Building Inspection Department has achieved something remarkable, a 98% same-day approval rate. Police Chief Martinez sat at the head table, thick fingers wrapped around a coffee mug. Beside him, Mayor Davidson checked his phone while Father Miguel from St. Catherine's studied the crowd with the patience of a man who'd heard 10,000 confessions. 3 city councilmen rounded out the table of local power, each wearing the expression of men who'd rather be anywhere else. Dale clicked through his slides with practiced ease, graphs showing inspection completions rising like a hockey stick, charts demonstrating efficiency improvements that would make any MBA weep with joy. Slide 14 made Logan shift in his seat beside Hank. 0 structural failures in 18 months, a new record. Questions? Dale asked, clearly expecting none. These monthly presentations were usually just rubber stamps, a chance for city employees to justify their salaries. Hank stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. The room quieted the way it did when the auctioneer at the county fair raised his gavel. Everyone knew Hank Mercer never spoke at these things. 20 years of attendance, and he'd never asked a single question. "I'd like to announce something first," Hank said, his voice carrying without effort. "Mercer Hardware will be sponsoring a $5,000 annual tool scholarship at Millfield Technical High School." Applause rippled through the room. Mayor Davidson smiled. Election year, after all. Any good news was his good news. "That's wonderful, Hank," Dale said, already clicking to his next slide. "Now, if we could—" "I do have a question, though." Hank remained standing. "About those efficiency improvements." Dale's smile flickered like a fluorescent bulb about to die. "Of course. You show 14 express inspections last month, completed within 5 minutes of request, but city GPS records show your inspection truck parked at City Hall during those times. How does that work exactly?" The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Clark Ellery set down his coffee cup with an audible clink. Cameron Reed from the Gazette had her phone out, recording app already running. There must be some administrative confusion," Dale stammered. "We sometimes complete paperwork at the office after field visits." "I see." Hank's tone was conversational, almost friendly. "So you inspect first, then return to fill out forms?" "Exactly." "Interesting." Hank sat down, but Wyatt immediately stood. "Speaking of inspections," Wyatt said, his Purple Heart pin catching the morning light through the windows. "The VFW wheelchair ramp collapsed in January, day after you passed it." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The VFW was sacred ground in Millfield, where a third of the population had served. 32 veterans showed up to rebuild it ourselves," Wyatt continued, "because we don't leave wounded behind. But we had to tear out everything you approved, rotted support posts you somehow missed. Jimmy Castellano nearly went through when it collapsed. He's already missing a leg from Kisan. Didn't need to lose the other to substandard construction." Dale's forehead had developed a sheen of perspiration that the air conditioning couldn't account for. "I'll review that inspection immediately." "No need," Wyatt said, producing his phone. "We documented everything. Photos of the rot, date stamps showing when it was installed, your signature approving it all." From across the room, another voice. "What about St. Catherine's Soup Kitchen?" Father Miguel had stood, his usually gentle expression hardened. "You signed off on our renovation before the electrical was installed. We had to pay twice, once for your approved inspection, once to actually get it done right." Logan stood next. "I'm a state-licensed contractor. Dad knows I don't speak up much, but this matters." He pulled out his phone, walked straight to Mayor Davidson, and showed him the screen. 3 properties. I failed them for code violations. Dale passed them within days. No repairs made. He swiped through photos. Cracked foundations weeping water, support beams bowing under loads they couldn't carry, electrical panels installed backwards with live wires exposed. "The Henderson's deck," Logan continued. "Those joists can't hold the weight of a family barbecue. I told them that. Failed it officially. Dale passed it 3 days later. When that deck collapses, and someone's going to die." The murmur had become a rumble. Dale gripped the podium edges like a drowning man clutching driftwood. "These are serious allegations," Mayor Davidson said, his political antennae fully extended. "We'll conduct an internal review." "One more question," Hank said, standing again. The room went silent. "Inspector Rusk, does the Cardinal Motel count as a workplace for you? Your signature appears there quite often. Tuesday afternoons, specifically." Dale laughed, a sound like glass breaking in a garbage disposal. That's ridiculous. Why would I—" "Just asking," Hank said mildly. "Trying to understand your efficiency. Maybe you inspect rooms there? Check for code violations?" Someone in the back snorted, then another. Dale's face had gone from red to pale, like raw meat left in the sun. "I think we should move on," Dale said, reaching for his water glass with a visibly shaking hand. "I think we should investigate," Mayor Davidson announced. The election was 8 months away. He could smell a scandal that needed to be on the right side of. "Effective immediately, the city will conduct a thorough review of all inspection protocols." Cameron Reed was already typing on her phone, probably live tweeting the whole disaster. She caught Hank's eye as people began filing out, making the universal gesture for "call me." During the cleanup, as folks stacked chairs and collected coffee cups, Thomas Pike brushed past Hank. Without stopping or speaking, he pressed something into Hank's hand, a thumb drive, small as a cigarette lighter. In his truck, Hank plugged it into his laptop. A single file appeared, a grainy still from City Hall's security camera. The timestamp read 9:42 p.m., August 3rd. The image showed two figures in the supply cage beside the copy machine, locked in an embrace that suggested neither was thinking about office supplies. Elaine and Dale, clear as day. Through the VFW hall's tall windows, Hank could see the dispersing crowd. Dale walked quickly to his city truck, shoulders hunched. Behind him, keeping a careful distance, Elaine made her way to her Buick. As Dale passed her, she reached out a quick touch to his forearm, fingers sliding down to squeeze his hand briefly. It lasted maybe 2 seconds, but Hank saw it. So did Cameron Reed, whose phone was still recording. The drive back to the hardware store took 12 minutes through downtown traffic. Hank used the time to think, to plan. The public confrontation had been Phase 1, shake the tree, see what falls out. Dale was rattled, probably calling his union rep right now. Elaine would hear about it within the hour, start covering tracks, but they didn't know about the thumb drive, or Maggie's forensic accounting, or the fact that Clark Ellery had already provided detailed bank records to someone who knew exactly what to do with them. At the store, Logan was waiting in the back office, studying his phone with an expression Hank recognized from when the boy was young, working through a particularly tough math problem. "Dad, I've been thinking," Logan said. "Every one of Dale's bad inspections has a pattern. They all benefit specific contractors. The same 3 companies get the passes. Everyone else gets failed for legitimate stuff, has to pay for repairs, then pays again for re-inspection. Who are the 3 companies? Brennan Construction, that's Jim Brennan, Dale's brother-in-law. Midwest Builders owned by Tom Carver, who just happens to be married to Elaine's cousin Patricia, and R&D Development. Who owns R&D? Logan looked up from his phone. That's the interesting part. It's registered to a holding company in Kansas City, but the mailing address? It's a post office box here in Millfield, same one the Guild uses for their correspondence. The web of connections spread like spilled paint, touching everything. This wasn't just an affair. This was organized corruption, with his wife at the center, pulling strings like a spider in her web. "Logan," Hank said quietly, "I need you to document everything. Every failed inspection, every suspicious pass, every connection between the companies and Dale. Can you do that?" "Already started." Logan pulled out a flash drive of his own. 23 projects over 18 months. Estimated additional costs to homeowners. Over $300,000. That's fraud, Dad. Federal-level fraud. Hank nodded. His son had inherited more than just his aptitude for construction. He'd gotten the Mercer sense of right and wrong, the one that said you build things properly or not at all. "What are you going to do?" Logan asked. "What needs doing?" Hank replied. "One board at a time until the whole structure's sound again." That afternoon, while Elaine was supposedly at her sister's, Hank saw her Buick parked behind Romano's wine bar. Dale's city truck was 3 spots over, backed in like he was ready for a quick escape. Hank didn't stop, didn't confront, just drove past, adding another piece of evidence to his mental file. Tonight, she'd come home smelling of wine and claiming her sister was having marriage troubles, needed a sympathetic ear. And Hank would nod, sympathize, play the role of the oblivious husband for just a little longer. Because tomorrow was Friday, and Friday meant the state auditor's office would be open. The FedEx package was already prepared, sitting in his truck, ready to be sent anonymously from the shipping store 2 towns over. Inside, everything. Inspection reports, bank records, the security photo. A typed note that simply read, "Millfield needs help." The war was about to expand beyond the boundaries of their small town, and Hank Mercer, who'd learned patience in jungles half a world away, was ready for the long siege ahead. Chapter 4. The FedEx package arrived at the state auditor's office in Jefferson City at 9:47 Friday morning. No return address, paid in cash at a shipping store in Brookfield. surveillance footage showing only a man in a baseball cap and sunglasses who kept his face turned from the cameras. Sarah Chen, senior investigator for the state auditor, recognized the pattern immediately. Small-town corruption dressed up as efficiency, with a side of embezzlement for flavor. She'd seen it 3 times this year already, Marshall, Sedalia, and now Millfield. "Pack your bags," she told her team. "We're going fishing in a small pond." By Monday morning, 2 unmarked state vehicles pulled into Millfield's courthouse parking lot. The investigators set up in the unused jury room, its high windows and solid door providing both natural light and necessary privacy. Their first order of business was a compliance freeze. Every pending inspection in Millfield stopped cold until Dale Rusk's files underwent complete review. 43 contractors received certified letters by noon, ordering work stoppage on any sites Dale had approved in the last 6 months. Thomas Pike, suddenly the most important man in City Hall's basement, wheeled box after box of records up to the jury room. 5 years of inspection reports, permits, and sign-offs, some still smelling of the mildew that plagued the basement every spring. "This everything?" Sarah asked, surveying the mountain of paperwork. "Everything except what Inspector Rusk keeps in his personal files," Thomas replied, allowing himself a small smile. "Those are locked in his office." "Not anymore," Sarah said, producing a warrant. "We'll need those keys." Meanwhile, Clark Ellery sat in his bank office, watching the State Banking Commission's request populate on his screen. Freeze all Quilter's Guild accounts pending receipt verification. He printed the order, walked personally to the main branch terminal, and entered the freeze codes with the satisfaction of a man seeing justice in action. Within an hour, Eden Frost received an automated call informing her that the Guild's debit card had been declined at Hancock Fabrics. She immediately drove to the church and posted a handwritten sign on the bulletin board. "Raffle suspended until further notice by order of State Banking Commission." Tuesday's Guild meeting was usually a cheerful affair, women chatting over their quilting frames, sharing gossip and banana bread. This Tuesday felt like a funeral where nobody wanted to name the deceased. Elaine arrived 20 minutes late, her usual commanding presence diminished to something brittle and defensive. "This is all a misunderstanding," she announced to the room, though nobody had asked. "Administrative confusion that will be cleared up by week's end." Willow Hart, who'd been Elaine's loyal lieutenant for 15 years, studied her friend with the expression of someone discovering their prize roses were actually weeds. "Elaine, the state doesn't freeze accounts over administrative confusion." "They do when someone makes false allegations," Elaine shot back. "Jealous people who can't stand to see others succeed." "Who's jealous of what exactly?" old Mrs. Patterson asked, her voice carrying the authority of 87 years. "The Guild's been here since 1962. Never had our accounts frozen before you took over." The room went silent except for the tick of the wall clock, the one donated by the Rotary Club in 1994. Across town, Emery Walsh sat in the Cardinal Motel's cramped office, sweating through his polyester uniform shirt despite the air conditioning. 2 state investigators faced him across the desk, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "We need all registration records for the past year," the taller one said. "Specifically Tuesday afternoons." Emery's hands shook as he pulled up the computer files. He'd been night clerk here for 3 years, had seen things that would make a priest reconsider his vocation. But this was different. This was official. "Room 12, he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Check room 12. The records told their story in black and white. August 6th, 2:04 p.m. to 4:17 p.m. Charged to a credit card ending in the same 4 digits as the Guild's card. The signature on the receipt someone had tried to sign E. Smith, but the loopy flourish on the S was unmistakably Elaine Mercer's. "How many times?" the investigator asked. Emery scrolled through months of records. 23 times in 6 months, always Tuesday afternoons, always room 12. While the investigators documented the motel records, Wyatt Boone organized something unprecedented in Millfield's history, a citizen safety inspection. 12 sites Dale had approved in the last month, examined by volunteers with construction experience. They found violations at 9 locations. Logan documented everything with his contractor's eye and his phone's camera. Missing hurricane clips that would let roofs peel off in strong wind. Inadequate flashing that already showed water damage. Electrical panels installed backwards, live wires inches from where children played. "This one's the worst," Logan told Cameron Reed, who was photographing everything for Sunday's special edition. "The Henderson's deck. These joists are 2 at day 6, where code requires 2 at out 10. Load calculations show it'll hold maybe 300 pounds safely. A family barbecue with 10 people. It's coming down." Cameron climbed under the deck, her flash illuminating the already bowing wood. "How did Dale miss this?" "He didn't miss it," Logan said flatly. "I failed it myself 2 weeks ago. Dale passed it 3 days later. Never even came to look." The state investigators worked with mechanical precision, cross-referencing Dale's inspection times with his city vehicle's GPS data. The results were damning: 17 inspections signed off when the truck was parked at City Hall, 5 when it was at Romano's wine bar, and 3 when it was at the Cardinal Motel. "Mr. Pike," Sarah Chen said, studying a particularly interesting report. "This address, 1247 Madison Street. What's there?" Thomas smiled. "Nothing. Hasn't been for 6 years. It's a vacant lot where the old Woolworths used to be." "Yet Dale inspected it last month?" "Apparently. Passed it for commercial occupancy, too." The Hendersons were the first family to receive an emergency evacuation order. The deck Dale had approved was yellow-taped, an engineering assessment deeming it an imminent hazard. The couple stood in their backyard, holding their 2 young children, staring at the death trap they'd been hosting family dinners on. Martinez's auto shop got shut down next. The electrical violations were so severe, the fire chief said they were lucky the place hadn't burned down already. "Like a bomb waiting for a match," he told reporters. 3 apartment balconies at Riverside got red-tagged after an engineer found they were attached with half the required bolts. 18 families evacuated with whatever they could carry, not knowing when they'd return. Local contractors rallied, offering free emergency repairs. "We're not letting our neighbors suffer for Dale's corruption," Jim Brennan announced, even though his connection to Dale through marriage made him suspect. "Some things matter more than money." Dale's office got sealed with evidence tape Tuesday afternoon. His secretary Brenda told to work from home until further notice. She left carrying a banker's box of personal items, telling anyone who'd listen that she'd always suspected something wasn't right. 17 builders gave statements to the state investigators, each telling variations of the same story. Pass inspections went to connected companies. Everyone else got failed for increasingly creative reasons, forcing expensive repairs that might or might not get approved on reinspection. "It's a shakedown," one contractor said. "Pay to play, or don't play at all." That evening, Maggie Chu worked late in Hank's back office, creating a master timeline that would make prosecutors weep with joy. Every questionable inspection aligned with guild fund withdrawals. Every afternoon at the Cardinal corresponded with gaps in both Dale's and Elaine's schedules. She slid one particular receipt across Hank's desk. The 2:04 p.m. Cardinal charge from August 6th. 2 beverages wine, probably. The day rate for room 12, a $20 cash tip. All charged to the guild's card, Elaine's signature clear as day despite her attempt to disguise it. "She wasn't even careful," Maggie said softly. "It's like she thought she was untouchable." "Maybe she did," Hank replied, studying the receipt. 23 years of marriage, and she never thought I'd look too close." That evening, Elaine announced she was going to her sister's in Kansas City. Just for a few days, until this mess blows over. She packed quickly, hands shaking as she folded clothes. Hank watched from the doorway. "Need help?" "No, I'm fine." But she wasn't. Her movements were jerky, panicked. When she thought he wasn't looking, she slipped her jewelry box into the suitcase. Then the emergency cash from the kitchen drawer, $500 in 20s they kept for power outages and natural disasters. "Drive safe," he said as she headed for the door. She paused, turned back. For a moment, she looked like the woman he'd married young, uncertain, needing reassurance. "Hank, I know," he said, though what he knew and what she thought he knew were oceans apart. After she left, he walked through their house, 23 years of accumulated life, the couch they'd bought on credit when Logan was born. The dining table his father had built by hand. The quilts she'd made during happier times, before the guild became her kingdom and corruption her crown. His phone rang. Wyatt. "You see the news?" Wyatt asked. Hank flipped on the television. Channel 5 led with breaking news. State investigation reveals widespread inspection fraud in Millfield. Cameron Reed appeared on screen detailing her investigation. No mention of affairs or personal scandals, just facts, figures, and failures that could have killed people. "Dale's done," Wyatt said. "Word is the union's already backing away. Won't defend criminal charges." "And Elaine?" There was a pause. "Jade Rusk was at the liquor store an hour ago. Bought a bottle of wine and said something about burning all of Dale's clothes. The whole town's going to know by morning." After Wyatt hung up, Hank sat in his recliner. No television, no lights, just the distant sound of traffic on Highway 36. Tomorrow, the state would expand their investigation. More documents would surface. The web would unravel thread by thread until nothing remained but the truth. He pulled out his phone, scrolled to a photo Logan had sent. His grandchildren at last year's Christmas, wearing the matching sweaters Elaine had knitted for them. They were laughing at something off camera, probably their grandfather making faces behind their grandmother's back. Those children would grow up without their grandmother in the daily picture. But they'd grow up in a town where buildings were safe, where inspections meant something, where their grandfather had stood up when it mattered. Outside, headlights swept across the living room wall. For a moment, Hank thought Elaine had returned, but the lights passed, leaving him in darkness again. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, paperwork, the slow grind of justice working its way through small-town bureaucracy. But tonight, Hank Mercer sat alone in the house his father built, on foundation stones laid true and level, and waited for dawn. End of Part 1. Chapter 5. Harrison Ashford's law office occupied the second floor of the old Farmers Bank building, the one that survived the tornado of '88 when everything around it got flattened. Fitting place for a divorce attorney standing firm while lives got torn apart. "Coffee?" Ashford asked, already pouring. 20 years of practice had taught him that difficult conversations went down easier with something warm in your hands. "Black," Hank said, settling into the leather chair that probably cost more than most folks' monthly mortgage. "The Pennington case," Ashford began, pulling out a yellow legal pad. "That John Deere dealership split. You remember that?" "Half the town remembers. Got ugly." "Got fair. That's different." Ashford's pen clicked. "Retainers 5,000. I'll freeze the joint cards today, update your beneficiaries by close of business, and have Joyce inventory every asset by week's end." Joyce, the paralegal who'd been with Ashford since the beginning, materialized with a folder thick as a phone book. 41 years of marriage," she said, not unkindly. "That's a lot of life to untangle." "Just stuff," Hank said, though his throat felt tight. "Stuff can be divided." "What about Maggie Chu's findings?" Ashford asked. "The forensic accounting?" Hank slid across the folder Maggie had prepared. Ashford whistled low, flipping through pages of highlighted transactions. 11,000 in marital funds diverted over 8 months, each one matching those Tuesday afternoon. Meetings. "Guild business," Hank said dryly. "Sure. And I'm the Pope." Ashford made notes. "Kansas law lets us consider economic misconduct. This qualifies as dissipation of marital assets. She stole from your marriage to fund her affair. Judge Henderson doesn't look kindly on that." Meanwhile, across town in City Hall's basement, Thomas Pike was having the best day of his government career. State investigator Sarah Chen had commandeered his desk, and he was more than happy to comply. "These inspection addresses," she said, pointing at her laptop screen, "half don't exist." 7 are vacant lots, Thomas confirmed, pulling another box of files. 12 demolished before the inspection dates. 3 have been parking lots since the Clinton administration. "And Dale collected his fee for each one?" $150 per inspection. Cash or check, sometimes billed to the contractor who never actually existed. Thomas couldn't hide his satisfaction. "Been documenting this for 2 years. Nobody wanted to hear it till now." Sarah's partner, Detective Ray Volker, looked up from Dale's expense reports. Jesus Christ! He submitted the same receipt 17 times, just changed the dates with Photoshop. The real artistry, Thomas said, warming to his subject, is the training seminars. Billed mileage to Kansas City for events he never attended. Same dates Elaine Mercer claimed she was visiting her sister. Her sister lives in Topeka, Sarah noted. We checked. Hank's phone buzzed. Logan. Dad, Mickey's Diner in 20? Zoe's driving down from campus. The back booth at Mickey's hadn't changed since 1979. Same cracked vinyl, same coffee stains, same view of the parking lot where truckers used to plan their routes before GPS made everything too easy. Logan was already there, studying his phone with that look he got when working through construction specifications. Zoe arrived 5 minutes later, pre-law at Mizzou, smart as her mother, but with her father's sense of right and wrong. She slid into the booth, ordered coffee without looking at the menu. So, she said, how bad? Hank laid it out like blueprints, the cardinal receipts, the inspection fraud, Maggie's timeline showing 23 Tuesday afternoons that lined up like fence posts. Jesus, Dad. Logan's jaw worked exactly like Hank's did when processing bad news. 23 times? That we can prove. What about the house? Zoe asked, already thinking like a lawyer. I'm not leaving, Hank said. Your grandfather built that house with his own hands. I'll buy her out, whatever it takes. With what? The store's doing okay, but I've got some set aside. Your grandmother's inheritance I never touched, and the store's real estate is worth more than the books show. Neither child defended their mother. They'd both noticed things: new clothes stuffed in bags, mysterious evening meetings, the way she'd stopped asking about their lives and started talking only about guild business. I saw her last month, Zoe said quietly, having lunch at that place near campus, with a man. I thought it was a guild thing, but she shrugged. The way she laughed. She hasn't laughed like that at home in years. Logan's phone rang. Cameron Reed. Put her on speaker, Hank said. Mr. Mercer, I'm writing a story for Sunday's edition. Fast-track inspections. Who paid the price? I'm focusing solely on public safety, not personal matters. Can you provide documentation about code violations? Logan can, Hank said. He's got files on every failed inspection that mysteriously passed. I'm also looking at GPS records, Cameron continued. Dale's truck shows 43 impossible inspections, places he couldn't have been when he claimed to be there. Because he was at the Cardinal Motel, Logan said flatly. I can't print that without proof. Check the motel's business center security footage, Zoe suggested. If he was creating fake inspection reports during his meetings, there might be video. There was a pause. That's brilliant. Thank you. After Cameron hung up, they sat in silence. Mickey himself brought over pineapple for Hank, cherry for the kids without being asked. In a small town, sometimes comfort came in the form of baked goods and no questions. Jade Rusk knows, Zoe said suddenly. Amy Hendricks works at their dentist's office. Says Jade found a burner phone in Dale's gym bag. With texts? Logan asked. Hundreds. Someone saved his QG. Amy saw one that said, same room as last week, noon. Tell them it's another Madison inspection. QG, Hank said. Quilters Guild. That evening, Thomas Pike worked late, officially organizing files, but really documenting every instance of Dale's fraud he could find. The evidence was overwhelming training seminars in Kansas City that Dale billed but never attended, hotel reservations that matched dates when Elaine claimed to be visiting her sister. Sister visits, Thomas muttered, photocopying another receipt. Sure, and I'm dating Jennifer Aniston. His desk phone rang. Jade Rusk. Thomas? I know it's late, but I need copies of any documents showing Dale was supposed to be working when he wasn't. How many do you need? All of them. Her voice could have frozen hell. Every single one. Thomas smiled. I'll have them ready by morning. You want the ones that match Elaine Mercer's schedule too? Especially those. Meanwhile, at the Rusk house, Jade stood in her bedroom doorway at midnight watching Dale sleep. The burner phone glowed in her hand as she scrolled through months of lies. Each text was another nail in the coffin of their marriage. Room 12, ready E. Wear the blue dress I bought you D. Tell them it's for the veterans quilt. They never check those receipts E. Can't wait to see you. The binding needs to be tighter D. The last message sent just hours ago. State's here. Stay away. Delete everything. Too late for that. Jade had already screenshotted everything, emailed it to her lawyer, and backed it up to 3 different cloud services. Dale might be many things: liar, cheat, corrupt official, but he'd married a woman who understood the value of documentation. She closed the bedroom door quietly, went to the guest room she'd been sleeping in for a week, and began typing an email to Cameron Reed. The subject line was simple: everything you need to know about Dale Rusk and Elaine Mercer. By morning, the whole town would know. But tonight, Jade sat in the dark, planning her own revenge, one keystroke at a time. Chapter 6. Monday morning arrived with William Brennan, retired state fire marshal, standing outside City Hall like an avenging angel with a briefcase full of testing equipment. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and completely immune to small-town political pressure. 37 sites in 2 years, he told Sarah Chen. I'll need a week. Take 2, she replied. We want this airtight. Brennan's first stop was the Riverside Apartments. He didn't even need his equipment. The balcony visibly swayed when he stepped on it. Everyone out, he ordered. Now! 6 families evacuated with whatever they could carry. The Hendricks family with their twin toddlers. Old Mrs. Kowalski with her 3 cats. The Nguyen family who'd just signed their lease last month, trusting that past inspection meant safe. This would have collapsed, Brennan told the gathering crowd. Maybe today, maybe next week, but soon. And when it did, he didn't need to finish. Logan stood beside him, documenting everything with his phone. I failed this 3 times. Dale passed it without even looking. He looked, Brennan corrected, at his bank account. Wednesday night's emergency guild meeting felt like a funeral where the corpse kept trying to sit up and argue. Eden Frost had taken over as temporary chair, Elaine having missed 2 weeks of meetings. Motion on the floor, Willow Hart announced, her voice steady despite 15 years of friendship with Elaine, to censure Elaine Mercer and strip all financial authority pending completion of the state audit. Second, called out Mrs. Patterson, all 87 years of her radiating disapproval. Discussion? Eden asked. This is ridiculous. Patty Morrison, one of Elaine's cousins, stood up. You're all just jealous. Elaine's done more for this guild than anyone. She's stolen from it, Willow interrupted. $8,900 that we can prove. Who knows how much we can't? Where is that money, Patty? Eden asked quietly. Show me receipts for fabric purchases totaling $8,000. Show me one vendor who received payment for supplies we supposedly bought. Silence. All in favor? 31 hands rose. Against? 3 hands Elaine's cousins. Motion passes. That's when Elaine walked in, 20 minutes late, designer purse clutched like armor. The room went silent as death. I need access to the raffle funds, she announced. There are outstanding guild expenses. No. Eden's backbone, forged from 40 years of church secretary service, was pure steel. States frozen everything. Even if they hadn't, you no longer have signing authority. You can't do this. I'm the elected president. Were, Willow corrected. Past tense, like your marriage, like your reputation, like your access to our money. Elaine's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine denial. Rage, bargaining, more rage. This is a witch hunt. You're all just small-minded, jealous. We're not the ones who charged afternoon motel rates to the guild credit card, Eden said quietly. The room gasped. Nobody had said it out loud yet, though everyone knew. How dare you invoice from August 6th, Eden continued, pulling out a paper. $247.99, Cardinal Motel, signed E. Smith, but honey, we all know your handwriting. Elaine snatched for the paper. Eden pulled it back. That's evidence now. State investigators have the original. For a moment, Elaine looked like she might cry. Then the rage returned, harder, meaner. You sanctimonious bitches, sitting here with your quilts and your gossip, pretending to be so righteous. At least I lived. At least I felt something. You felt Dale Rusk, Mrs. Patterson said dryly. We all know what you felt. Someone snickered, then another. Soon the whole room was laughing not kindly, but with the harsh edge of judgment finally released. Elaine stood there for a moment, designer purse trembling, then turned and stormed out. Through the window, they watched her Buick peel out of the church parking lot, tires squealing like her indignation. "New business," Eden announced calmly. "Effective immediately, all financial transactions require 2 signatures. All receipts will be photographed and posted publicly. Any questions?" There weren't. Saturday dawned crisp and clear, perfect weather for what Wyatt Boone had dubbed Community Repair Day. By 8 a.m., 83 volunteers had gathered at Jasper's Deli, tools in hand. "Dale passed this ramp without railings," Wyatt announced. "Could have killed someone in a wheelchair. Would have killed Jimmy Castellano if he'd tried using it." Jimmy, missing his left leg from Quezon, nodded grimly. "Already gave enough parts to this country. Don't need to lose more to bad construction." Logan supervised while teaching teenagers from the technical school. "See this joint? That's how you do it right. Takes longer, costs more, but it'll last 50 years instead of 5. Hank donated the lumber at cost, though Logan tried to refuse payment entirely. "Business is business," Hank said. "Charity's something else. Don't confuse them or both go bad." Cameron Reed was there, photographing everything. The permit properly displayed, the level showing perfect true. The small plaque Logan installed. "Built right by neighbors who care, August 2024. "Mr. Mercer," Cameron said. "One photo? Just you with the ramp?" "No." Hank's tone was final. "This isn't about me." She photographed the ramp anyway, the fresh wood gleaming in morning sun, the precise joints, the perfect angle. Everything Dale's inspections should have ensured, but didn't. Meanwhile, Emery Walsh sat in the Cardinal Motel's office, keeping his own log. He'd started after the state investigators left, his conscience finally winning. Thursday, 2:15 p.m., Elaine's Buick idling by the east stairway. She carried what looked like wine. Room 12's door closed at 2:22. The familiar rhythm started at 2:30, lasted exactly 90 minutes. Business as usual, except now he documented it all. That evening, at the Riverside turnout where teenagers went to make out and married people went to make mistakes, Elaine and Dale sat in Dale's pickup arguing. Jennifer Walsh, jogging past, recognized them immediately. Dale's hand covered Elaine's, then moved to the gear shift like he wanted to leave. Elaine was crying, mascara running in black rivers down her cheeks. "Can't just abandon," Elaine's voice carried on the wind. "Told you this would happen," Dale's response. "Said you loved us, said a lot of things." Jennifer jogged on, but pulled out her phone to text Cameron Reed. "Trouble in Paradise. Cardinal Motel turnout." They're fighting. Cameron arrived 20 minutes later, just in time to see Dale's truck leaving, Elaine still standing by the river, looking at the muddy water like it might have answers. "Mrs. Mercer?" Cameron called out. Elaine turned, saw the camera, and laughed bitter and sharp. "Come to document my humiliation? Just wanted to make sure you're okay." "Okay?" Elaine's laugh turned hysterical. "My husband knows. The whole town knows. Dale's throwing me under the bus to save his pension. The guild wants me arrested. My credit cards are maxed. My children won't answer my calls. But sure, I'm fantastic. Do you want to make a statement? Tell your side?" For a moment, Elaine considered it. Then she shook her head. "What's the point? The town's made up its mind. I'm the whore who stole from the church. Facts don't matter anymore." "Facts always matter," Cameron said quietly. "Really? Here's a fact: I fell in love. Here's another: Dale said he loved me too. Here's one more: everyone in this town has secrets. I just got caught with mine." She walked to her car, leaving Cameron by the river. The journalist stood there for a moment, then typed a note in her phone. Elaine Mercer. Unrepentant, but not unsympathetic. Dale Rusk. Nowhere to be found when consequences arrived. Chapter 7. Sunday's emergency guild meeting pulled 63 members to the fellowship hall, more than they'd had at Christmas service. The air crackled with the kind of tension that preceded thunderstorms and public shamings. Willow Hart stood at the podium, holding papers that trembled slightly in her hands. 15 years of friendship weighed against civic duty, and duty was winning. "Motion to permanently remove Elaine Mercer from guild leadership," she read. based on financial misconduct, breach of fiduciary duty, and actions detrimental to the guild's reputation. Second, Eden Frost called out, loud and clear. Discussion? Patty Morrison stood again, loyal to the end. This is cruel. Whatever Elaine did with her personal life. She stole our money to fund it, interrupted Mrs. Chen, whose daughter ran the Chinese restaurant. That makes it our business. $8,900, someone called out. That we know of, another added. All in favor? 58 hands rose like Judgment Day. Against? 2 hands Patty and her sister. Abstaining? One trembling hand from Elaine's elderly Aunt Rose, who whispered, I just can't. I held her as a baby. Motion passes, Willow announced. Effective immediately, Elaine Mercer is removed from all guild positions and banned from financial access. Eden stood next. I've posted full accounting on the bulletin board. Every penny tracked, every receipt verified. We've got nothing to hide anymore. Through the window, they could see Elaine's Buick in the parking lot. She'd been sitting there for 20 minutes, watching them decide her fate. Should someone tell her? Rose asked weakly. She knows, Willow said. The whole town knows. At the 11 o'clock service, Reverend Patterson delivered a sermon on trust and community. He never mentioned names, but everyone understood when he spoke about wolves in sheep's clothing and those who steal not just money but faith. Elaine sat in the last pew, alone. The spaces beside her remained empty as if she carried something contagious. When it came time for the peace, people turned away rather than shake her hand. She left during the final hymn. Monday morning, Hank changed every lock in the house. The hardware store had sold these same deadbolts for 30 years commercial grade, pick-resistant, built to last. He'd installed dozens for other people going through divorces. Now it was his turn. Logan helped, neither of them talking much. Work was easier than words. Mom came by the job site Friday, Logan finally said. Wanted to borrow money. What'd you tell her? That my wallet was in my other truck. He tested the new lock, nodded approval. She didn't even ask how Sarah and the kids were doing. By noon, Hank had opened new bank accounts, redirected the store's deposits, canceled Elaine's credit cards from his accounts. The automatic payments for her quilting workshops in Kansas City, the ones she'd never attended, stopped immediately. Clark Ellery called that afternoon. Hank, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Elaine's personal credit card is 3 months behind. Default interest kicks in next week, 29.9%. Not my problem anymore. No, but she applied for a personal loan. Got denied. Debt-to-income ratio is shot, plus all the recent credit inquiries. Thanks for letting me know. But Clark wasn't done. She's going to lose her car, Hank. Bank's already started paperwork for repossession. After Clark hung up, Hank sat in his office, looking at the photo from their 25th anniversary. Elaine smiling, his arm around her, both of them pretending things were better than they were. Thomas Pike was working overtime, loving every minute of it. Box after box of evidence, each one another nail in Dale's professional coffin. Look at this, he told Sarah Chen. 5 vendor dinners at Romano's wine bar, $800 total, no vendors named, but check the dates. All Tuesdays, Sarah finished. All matching times when Elaine Mercer's calendar shows errands. There's more. This Midwest Fabric Expo he claimed to attend, canceled 2 years ago, but he still submitted hotel receipts. For a suite, Ray Volker noted. King bed, champagne package. Romance on the city's dime, Thomas said with satisfaction. There's enough here for federal charges. Thursday morning, Elaine showed up at the church for regular sewing circle, walking in like nothing had happened. The dozen women present froze, needles suspended mid-stitch. That's when Deputy Harrison walked in, holding official papers. Elaine Mercer, you're being served with a civil demand for restitution of misappropriated funds. He handed her the packet, 43 pages of bank records, receipts, evidence. The amount circled in red, 11/3/47/82. Elaine read the first page, her face shifting from confusion to rage. Then she did something nobody expected. She tore the papers in half, then quarters, then threw them at Eden. You small-minded, jealous bitches! You've destroyed my life over nothing. Dale and I, we loved each other. Is that such a crime? Is wanting something more than this pathetic small-town existence so wrong? Yes, Eden said calmly, when you steal to fund it. I took what I deserved. 20 years of organizing your pathetic raffles, your bake sales, your charity quilts that nobody actually wants. I deserve something for myself. You had something, Willow said quietly. You had a husband who loved you, children who respected you, a community that trusted you, and you threw it all away for Dale Rusk. Dale understands me. Dale's saving himself, Mrs. Patterson interrupted. Haven't you heard? He's cooperating with investigators, throwing you under the bus to reduce his charges. Elaine's face went white. That's not. He wouldn't. Check your phone, someone suggested. Betty hasn't called in days. Elaine pulled out her phone with shaking hands. No messages. No missed calls. She dialed a number. It went straight to voicemail. Dale's blocked you, Eden observed. His lawyer probably told him to cut all contact. Elaine stood there for a moment, phone in hand, torn papers at her feet, surrounded by women who'd once been friends. Then she ran, leaving her purse behind, leaving everything behind. That night, City Hall's security camera captured something interesting. Elaine's Buick in the back lot. She climbed into Dale's pickup truck, sliding under a blue tarp among ladders and paint cans. Thomas Pike, working late again, saw everything. He documented it, of course. Time, 9:47 p.m. Duration, 12 minutes. Dale drove away carefully, checking mirrors, unaware he was being watched. Still meeting, Thomas muttered, adding it to his file. Some people never learn. Chapter 8. Friday morning's press conference was Dale's Hail Mary, his last shot at saving something from the wreckage. He stood at City Hall's podium in his best suit, flanked by his union representative and a lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I've been targeted, Dale began, reading from prepared notes, by disgruntled parties with personal vendettas. My efforts to streamline bureaucratic processes threatened entrenched interests who profit from inefficiency. The crowd of reporters, 3 local, 2 from Kansas City, scribbled notes. Cameron Reed stood in the back, laptop open, fingers poised over keys. These allegations are nothing more than Cameron's laptop screen blazed to life, projecting onto the conference room's white wall. The security photo from City Hall, Dale and Elaine embracing by the copy machine, timestamp clear as day. What about this, Inspector Rusk? She called out. Dale's lawyer jumped up. You can't, that's inadmissible. It's from public security cameras, Cameron replied calmly. Public record, Dale stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. That was collegial support during a difficult time. At 9:42 p.m., in the supply closet? We were discussing guild business. The room erupted in laughter. That's when the door opened. Jade Rusk walked in like an avenging angel, manila envelope in one hand, burner phone in the other. She walked straight to the podium, shouldering Dale aside. You want to know about Dale Rusk? I'll tell you. She pulled out the phone, began reading, Tuesday, June 4th. Charge it to the guild. Wednesday, June 12th. Room 12 ready. Thursday, June 20th. Wear the blue dress I like. Dale lunged for the phone. His lawyer grabbed his arm, hissing, Don't make it worse. There are hundreds, Jade continued. Some are explicit. Some are about money. This one's my favorite. Tell them it's for the veterans quilt. They never check those receipts. The union representative physically stepped away from Dale, putting distance between them. Mrs. Rusk, one reporter called out. How long have you known? A week. Found the phone in his gym bag, hidden in a rolled-up towel, like a teenager hiding cigarettes. What made you look? Jade's smile was sharp as broken glass. Elaine Mercer called my house looking for him, at 11 p.m., on a Wednesday, said it was about urgent inspection business. Sarah Chen and Ray Volker, who'd been observing from the side, stepped forward. Mr. Rusk will need all your electronic devices. Now. I want my lawyer. You have him. He's right there. Devices. Now. Dale handed over his work phone, personal phone, tablet. Sarah bagged each one, labeled them, handed him receipts. We'll also need your work laptop. It's in my office, former office, Mayor Davidson corrected, entering the room. You're suspended without pay, effective immediately. Your keys, please. Dale's hands shook as he removed his city keys. The sound they made hitting the podium echoed through the silent room. Cameron was already typing, "City inspector suspended amid fraud affair allegations." "This is a witch hunt," Dale said desperately. "I'm being railroaded." "No," Jade interrupted. "You're being held accountable. There's a difference." She turned to the crowd. "Dale Rusk endangered lives for money and sex. He passed inspections that could have killed people. Families lived in dangerous homes because he was too busy with Elaine Mercer to do his job. That's not a witch hunt. That's justice." The room erupted, reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing, Dale's lawyer trying to hustle him out. Through it all, Jade stood at the podium like a lighthouse, immovable and casting light on everything Dale wanted hidden. That afternoon, while the town buzzed with scandal, Hank did something unexpected. He met with Maggie Chu at the bank, where they formalized the Mercer Chu Tool Chest Fund through the Community Foundation. "Anonymous?" Maggie asked. "No," Hank decided. "People should know there are better things to focus on than scandal." The fund would provide $2,000 annually to a Millfield technical student studying traditional trades. Building things right, the way they should be built. Clark Ellery, processing the paperwork, mentioned quietly, "Elaine's cards are maxed. Default rates kicked in this morning. She owes almost $12,000 now with penalties." "She made her choices," Hank said. "I know, but she came in yesterday, begging for a loan, crying. It was hard to watch. Should have been hard for her to steal from the guild, too." Monday morning before dawn, an envelope slid under Mercer Hardware's door. Inside, invoices from Cardinal Motel, each one charging the guild for committee planning retreats, each one signed by Elaine, witnessed by Dale. The note was simple: "There are more. E.W." Emery Walsh's conscience had finally won completely. Hank studied the invoices. 23 afternoon retreats. Over $3,000 charged to the guild for Dale and Elaine's affair. He called Sarah Chen. "Got something else for you. Bring it by. We're building a federal case now. This crossed state lines when they used guild funds from the regional organization. Federal? RICO, potentially. Racketeering. This wasn't just an affair, Mr. Mercer. This was organized crime. Small scale, but still criminal enterprise." That evening, security footage from the motel's business center showed something damning Dale at 2 a.m. using the printer. The documents coming out were inspection reports, presigned, for inspections he'd conduct officially hours later. "Falsifying government documents," Ray Volker told Sarah. "That's 5 years per count." "How many counts?" "So far? 43 we can prove." Dale's lawyer called Cameron Reed that evening. "My client wants to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" "He has information about other people involved, contractors who paid for passes, city officials who looked the other way. In exchange for reduced charges, minimum sentence." Cameron typed notes while he talked, already seeing Sunday's headline, "Corruption web spreads, who else knew?" But the real bombshell came from an unexpected source. Thursday night, Elaine called Cameron directly. "I want to tell my side," she said, voice slurred whine or tears or both. "Nobody understands. Dale promised, he said, we'd leave together, start fresh in Kansas City. He had it all planned." "What changed?" "You did. Your investigation. The state showing up. Suddenly he's talking about his pension, his reputation, his family, like I didn't give up everything for him." "Will you go on record?" "Why not? I've lost everything else." They met at the Riverside Turnout, the same place where Jennifer Walsh had seen them arguing. Elaine looked older, harder, like she'd aged years and weeks. "It started innocently," she began. "Guild business, really. Dale was helping expedite permits for our charity projects, then coffee to discuss details, then lunch, then room 12. Elaine laughed bitterly. "Room 12, our paradise. 90 minutes every Tuesday where I felt alive, where someone saw me as more than Hank's wife or the kid's mother or the guild president. Just me. Was it worth it?" Elaine stared at the muddy river. "Ask me in a year, if I survive that long." She drove away, leaving Cameron with a story that would humanize the villain or villainize the human, depending on how you read it. That night, Dale sat in county lockup, his bail revoked for attempting to contact witnesses specifically, trying to convince contractors to lie about their payments. Elaine sat in the Cardinal Motel parking lot, unable to afford a room, watching the closed sign flicker. And Hank sat in his living room, replacing the batteries in his smoke detectors, building things right, maintaining them properly, the way his father taught him. Some things fell apart despite your best efforts. Others fell apart because of someone else's worst efforts. The trick was knowing which was which, and what was worth rebuilding. End of Part 2. Chapter 9. Tuesday's emergency town hall packed the high school auditorium until people stood along the walls. 400 citizens of Millfield, each one carrying a story about Dale Rusk's corruption or Elaine Mercer's theft. The air conditioning struggled against the August heat and the weight of collective anger. Wyatt Boone opened the meeting with military precision, standing at the podium in his pressed VFW uniform. "We're here because our trust was broken, not bent, broken." He clicked through photos on the projection screen. The collapsed VFW ramp. Jimmy Castellano's wheelchair tilted at a dangerous angle. Rotted beams that Dale had certified as sound. 32 veterans rebuilt that ramp ourselves, Wyatt said, because we couldn't trust the system meant to protect us. Jimmy here nearly went through. Lost his leg in Quezon. Almost lost his life to corruption in Millfield. Jimmy wheeled himself forward. "I've seen enemy fire. Never thought I'd be in danger from lazy paperwork." Logan took the podium next, his PowerPoint clinical and devastating. Side-by-side comparisons filled the screen. Code requirements on the left, Dale's approvals on the right. "Missing foundation bolts," he narrated. "Absent fire blocking. This one," he pointed to an electrical panel, "installed completely backward. Live wires where the ground should be. It's attempted murder through negligence." Each slide drew gasps, then murmurs, then angry rumbling. Thomas Pike approached with a banker's box. His moment finally arrived. "Official council minutes," he announced, pulling out binders. 847 hours of inspections Dale billed for, cross-referenced with his actual locations. He read directly from the records, dates and times and impossibilities. Dale claiming to inspect the north side while his truck's GPS showed him at Romano's. Signing off on addresses while security cameras proved he was at the Cardinal Motel. He stole time, Thomas said, but worse, he stole safety. From the front row, Hank stood. He walked to the podium carrying something small, a leather field notebook, worn and stained. "Found this in City Hall," he said simply. "Dale's personal inspection log." He opened it, began reading. The crowd went silent. August 3rd. Riverside Apartments. EM says urgent. Pass without visit. Bill full rate. August 10th. Henderson Deck. QG needs favor. Approved site unseen. August 17th. Martinez Auto. EM authorized. Expedite for cash. Page after page, EM appeared. Elaine Mercer's initials authorizing corruption, turning safety into currency. "My wife," Hank said, the words scraping out, "traded your safety for motel rooms." He set down the notebook, pulled out a small digital recorder. "This was in the church donation box. Triggered by accident 2 months ago." He pressed play. Elaine's voice, breathy and eager, "Room 12 is ready." Dale's response, 20 minutes, use the side entrance." Then rustling, a door closing, silence. "How many people could have died?" someone shouted from the back. "How many almost did?" another voice added. Cameron Reed's laptop projected her investigation timeline on the screen. No gossip, no speculation, just facts pulled from public records. Each data point was a nail in the corruption's coffin. City Attorney Morrison stood. "The state has referred this case to the Attorney General. Dale Rusk faces prosecution for official misconduct, fraud, and falsifying government documents. We're looking at 143 separate counts." The crowd erupted. Morrison waited for quiet. "He's suspended without pay, effective immediately. The state will prosecute. This is now a criminal matter." Eden Frost took the microphone next, her church secretary backbone on full display. "The Guild has new policies. Every transaction requires 2 signatures. Monthly audits by bonded volunteers. Full transparency." She held up a ledger. Every penny accounted for. Posted publicly. No more secrets. What about Elaine? Someone called out. She owes $11,347 plus interest, plus penalties. The Guild will pursue every legal option for recovery. Willow Hart stood beside Eden. The heritage quilt will be completed and raffled properly. Every dollar goes to the food bank. We're washing our hands of this stain. Mayor Davidson, sweating through his election year smile, promised complete overhaul, state oversight, independent inspections. Never again, he said, though nobody believed him. The city council voted unanimously. Dale suspended pending criminal prosecution. Independent firm hired to re-inspect 5 years of Dale's work. As people filed out, stories emerged from neighbors who hadn't spoken in years. The Brennan family's leaked roof, $8,000 in repairs after Dale's approval. Jasper's insurance nearly canceled over violations Dale had passed. My daughter's bedroom ceiling collapsed, Marie Watson said. Dale passed it 2 weeks before. She was at school when it happened, thank God. Our deck started separating from the house, added Tom Chen. During my son's birthday party. 12 kids on it. Outside, through the Cardinal Motel's thin curtains, 2 silhouettes moved in the glow of a television. Everyone recognized the shapes, one tall and thick, one smaller with distinctive posture. Dale and Elaine, together even now, even after everything. Let them have each other, Wyatt said. They deserve each other. The crowd dispersed into the humid night, but something had shifted. The town had spoken with one voice, and that voice said, enough. Chapter 10. Wednesday morning arrived with paperwork, the grinding machinery of law finally catching up to betrayal. Harrison Ashford's office felt different now, less like a consultation, more like a war room. Dissipation of marital assets, Ashford read from the filing. Kansas law is clear. She stole from the marriage to fund the affair. That changes everything. The papers sprawled across his desk told the story in black and white. 41 years of marriage reduced to line items. The house is valued at $285,000, Ashford continued. Normally, she'd get half. But with dissipation, the $31,000 Maggie documented her share drops to $98,000. I want the house, Hank said. My father built it. You'll need to buy her out. Can you manage $98,000? Mom's inheritance plus a home equity loan. I can swing it. Joyce, the paralegal, added notes. Her attorney, some Kansas City lawyer working for partial payment, already called. She'll take the deal. She has no choice. Across town, the Guild's attorney drafted their own demands. $11,347.82. Payment plan offered. $500 monthly for 24 months, or immediate settlement with 10% reduction. She can't pay either, Eden reported at the emergency board meeting. Her cards are maxed. Her car's being repossessed. She's got nothing. Then we garnish wages, Willow said. Whatever job she gets, we take our cut. For how long? Forever, if necessary. Meanwhile, at the courthouse, State Prosecutor Jennifer Walsh, no relation to Emery, laid out the criminal case against Dale. 143 counts of false certification. Each carries up to 5 years, plus fraud, misconduct, theft of services. She smiled grimly. We're offering a plea, 20 counts, 18 months minimum, full restitution. Dale's lawyer, looking exhausted, nodded. He'll take it. He also loses his pension, his licenses, and any future in public service. Understood. Jade Rusk filed her divorce the same day. Adultery with evidence the burner phone texts, each one time-stamped and verified. She wanted the house, the savings, and full custody of their boys. I have one demand, she told her lawyer. He never works in this town again, not even at McDonald's. I don't want to see his face. That afternoon, Hank met with Maggie at the Community Foundation office. The Mercer Chew Tool Chess Fund was ready to launch. $25,000 initial funding, enough to help 3 students annually. Anonymous? The foundation director asked. No, Hank decided. Put our names on it. Let people know we're building something good from something bad. Wyatt organized the announcement for that evening at the VFW. Just coffee and donuts, no speeches except his. We build things right here, he said simply. Always have. Some folks forgot that. This fund helps make sure the next generation remembers. Marcus Thompson, 18 years old with hands already rough from work, received the first scholarship, $2,000 for tools and training. His father had died in Afghanistan when Marcus was 12. I'm going to be a carpenter, Marcus said, voice cracking slightly. Build things that last. That's the idea, Hank said, shaking his hand. First County Bank processed Elaine's delinquency notices with mechanical efficiency. Her credit cards hit 29.9% default interest. Late fees and penalties pushed her debt over $15,000. Clark Ellery handled it personally, remembering when Elaine had lectured him about Christian charity at last year's church fundraiser. We're attaching her Toyota, he told Hank privately. It's the only asset not protected. $8,000 value might cover half her debt. That evening, security footage at the Cardinal Motel showed Elaine trying the lobby door at 10:11 p.m. She waited in the vestibule, checking her phone obsessively. Room key in hand, ribbon faded from handling. Dale never showed. He was meeting with his criminal attorney, working through the plea bargain that would destroy his life but keep him from dying in prison. 18 months, his lawyer explained. You'll serve every day. No early release. When you get out, you'll be unemployable. What about Elaine? What about her? She's not your problem anymore. She's waiting for me at the motel. Then she's an idiot. You need to focus on yourself now. But Dale's hands shook as he signed the papers, thinking about room 12, about Tuesday afternoons, about promises made in the dark that couldn't survive the light. Across town, Elaine finally gave up waiting. She drove to the Riverside turnout, sat in her car watching the muddy water move. Her phone showed no messages. Dale had blocked her number on his lawyer's advice. She tried calling Patty, her cousin who'd defended her at the guild meeting. Straight to voicemail. Her sister in Kansas City, the one she'd pretended to visit all those times, answered on the third ring. I need help, Elaine said. No, her sister replied. You made your bed, literally. Don't call again. The line went dead. Elaine sat in her soon-to-be-repossessed Toyota, watching the river that didn't care about her problems, that just kept flowing toward somewhere else. She'd thought she was moving toward something with Dale. Turns out she was just circling the drain. Chapter 11. Saturday morning brought unexpected frost, the kind that made old-timers talk about early winter. But 40 volunteers showed up anyway, ready to rebuild what Dale had broken. Logan supervised the reconstruction of Jasper's wheelchair ramp, teaching 3 technical school students the right way to join lumber. See this? He showed them the proper angle. That's to code. What Dale approved would have killed someone. Marcus Thompson, the scholarship recipient, cut boards with focused precision, already learning that building right meant measuring twice, cutting once, and caring about who'd use what you built. Mr. Mercer, Cameron Reed approached with her camera. Just one photo? For the article about community rebuilding? No, Hank said firmly. Photograph the work, not me. She did, capturing the level showing perfect true, the permit properly displayed, the small plaque Logan installed. Built right by neighbors who care, September 2024. Eden's reformed raffle system was already succeeding. In 1 week, they'd raised $3,200 for the food bank. Every transaction documented, photographed, posted publicly. Transparency, Eden told anyone who'd listen. That's the antidote to corruption. Willow's team finished the heritage quilt, the one with DE stitched in the corner. After some debate, they left the initials. Even flawed works can serve good purposes, Willow said, adding a small card with that message. The quilt auction brought $1,800 from Doc Morrison, who immediately donated it back for the veterans' home. Let it keep old soldiers warm, he said. Better use than it had before. Sunday dinner at Hank's house felt different now, fuller. Logan brought his wife Sarah and the twins. Zoe drove down from law school. And Maggie, she was there too, comfortable in the kitchen she'd been visiting for years. Pass the potatoes, Zoe said, then added with a grin, Aunt Mags. Maggie blushed but smiled, handing over the dish she'd helped prepare. They talked about normal things. Logan's new bid for the elementary school construction. Zoe's Law Review article on municipal corruption. The Twins' Little League season. Nobody mentioned Elaine, who hadn't been seen in Millfield for 6 days. Monday brought more good news. Thomas Pike got promoted to record supervisor, 12,000 raise, and an assistant. 30 years of documenting everything, he said, almost in disbelief. Finally paid off. New city policies required 2 inspectors for all structural work. Date-stamped photos, GPS verification, triple redundancy. We're calling it the Millfield Protocol, the new inspection chief announced. Other cities are already asking about it. Tuesday, Cameron got a call from Dale's union representative. Plea bargain set. 20 counts guilty. 18 months minimum. No pension. Lifetime ban from inspection work. Will he testify about others involved? He's giving up 3 contractors who paid for passes, 2 city officials who looked away. Not Elaine. She wasn't officially part of the corruption, just the catalyst. That evening, Jade's attorney called with final divorce terms. She got everything: house, savings, custody. Dale got his clothes and his prison sentence. Thursday at 10 p.m., Elaine sat in the Cardinal Motel lobby for the last time. Emery had been instructed to close exactly at 10, new corporate policy after the scandal. She held a room key on a faded ribbon, waiting for someone who wasn't coming. Dale was in county lockup, bail revoked after he'd tried contacting witnesses. "Ma'am," Emery said, not unkindly, "we're closed. Just 5 more minutes?" "I'm sorry. Corporate's watching everything now." She left, driving nowhere in particular. Her Toyota would be repossessed tomorrow. Her apartment lease ended next week. Her options had narrowed to almost nothing. At Mercer Hardware, Hank worked late, Maggie helping with inventory. They moved around each other with easy familiarity, decades of friendship evolving into something more. "The old donation box," Maggie noted, seeing it on the highest shelf. "You kept it?" "Some reminders are worth keeping," Hank said. "Shows what happens when you don't maintain things properly. Rot sets in, corruption grows, but if you catch it in time." He gestured around the organized workshop, tools in their places, everything labeled and sorted. "You can rebuild." Maggie squeezed his shoulder, understanding. They stood among the tools and sawdust, not talking about the future, but building it anyway, one careful choice at a time. Chapter 12. Monday morning, Dale stood before Judge Harrison in a courtroom packed with former victims. His orange jumpsuit hung loose. He'd lost weight in county lockup. "How do you plead?" "Guilty, Your Honor." His voice barely carried. 20 counts of official misconduct. The judge read each one, Dale answering guilty to all. 18 months state prison, 50,000 in fines, lifetime ban from any inspection work, restitution to 17 families totaling $137,000. The gavel fell like thunder. "Mr. Rusk," the judge added, "you endangered lives for money and sex. You betrayed the public trust. I hope your time in prison helps you understand the gravity of what you've done." Deputies led Dale away. Through the courtroom doors, he glimpsed Elaine in the hallway. Their eyes met for a second before he was pulled around the corner. She reached toward him, but the moment was already gone. 3 hours later, Elaine sat in her attorney's office signing divorce papers. No contest now, she had nothing left to fight with. 300 monthly restitution to the guild, the lawyer explained. Garnished from wages for 5 years. "What wages? I don't have a job." "Then you better get one." Her share of the house, after dissipation adjustment and legal fees, 47,000. Enough to start over somewhere else, not enough to start over well. That evening, she stood at the quick stop 2 towns over, filling out an application. Night shift clerk, $11 an hour plus tips. "When can you start?" the manager asked. "Tonight." Hank spent the weekend replacing porch boards his father had installed in 1969. Each plank sanded smooth, sealed properly, built to last another generation. Logan helped, teaching Marcus the proper technique. "It's about respect," Logan explained. "Respect for the materials, the process, the people who'll use what you build." The hardware store thrived. Contractors trusted Mercer Hardware for materials that met code, that wouldn't fail inspection, real inspection, not Dale's rubber stamp. Thursday evening, the VFW Hall hosted the scholarship ceremony. Marcus Thompson received his tools, top-quality Craftsman and DeWalt, the kind that lasted careers. Rebecca Nguyen got funding for welding certification. "I want to build bridges," she said. "Real ones." Wyatt's speech was 3 sentences. "Build it right the first time. That's the rule. Everything else is just details." Maggie had moved some things to Hank's house. Not everything, not yet, but enough. Her coffee mug had a place. Her accounting files had a drawer. Her mother's china was in the cabinet. They developed a routine. Thursday mornings on the porch before the store opened, coffee and planning. Saturdays with Zoe when she drove down from school. Sundays with Logan's family. "We're thinking June for the wedding," Maggie mentioned one morning. "If that works for you." "June's good," Hank agreed. "Dad always said summer was for building things." The wedding was small. Family, close friends. The VFW Hall with Wyatt's decorations, red, white, and blue bunting. Mason jars with wildflowers. Zoe's toast made tough veterans tear up. They say you can't build on a broken foundation, but sometimes clearing away the damage lets you see the bedrock underneath was solid all along. By September, the Hand Skills Scholarship had full endowment. 3 students annually, forever. Building trades, inspection training, engineering, all the skills Dale had perverted, now taught properly. Cameron won her state press award for the investigation. Her acceptance speech was brief. "Corruption thrives in darkness. Journalism's job is to flip on the lights." Dale served every day of his 18 months. No early release, no special treatment. His name became a cautionary tale in inspection training programs statewide. Elaine never returned to Millfield. Her forwarding address was a post office box 3 counties away. The truck stop night shift became her world: fluorescent lights, coffee, and strangers who didn't know her history. The Cardinal Motel underwent renovation. Room 12 became a storage closet at Emery's insistence. "Bad karma," he said. "Some spaces need to be erased." Thomas Pike's digital inspection system was adopted by 6 neighboring counties. Triple verification, photographic evidence, GPS confirmation. Fraud became nearly impossible. Marcus Thompson completed his apprenticeship with distinction, hired full-time at Mercer Hardware. He learned the business from the ground up, the way Hank had learned from his father. Eden and Willow's Reformed Guild raised $45,000 for community projects. Every penny accounted for, every transaction transparent. 1 year later, the Millfield Gazette ran its follow-up story on a crisp November morning. 0 structural failures since the new inspection system. Logan's construction company had won the elementary school bid, every beam overbuilt for safety. At Thanksgiving, the Mercer table seated 12. Hank carved turkey with his father's knife, steady hands grateful for what remained and what was rebuilt. Maggie brought her famous coconut cake. Zoe was home from law school. Logan's twins called everyone aunt and uncle. Marcus Thompson was there too, part of the extended family now. Outside, first snow began to fall, covering the reinforced VFW ramp, the rebuilt porches, the solid foundations. Everything built properly, inspected honestly, made to last. In the veteran's home, the heritage quilt with DE, stitched in the corner, kept old soldiers warm. Its flaws were hidden by its function, its dark history overwritten by service. Tuesday mail brought Elaine a letter from the state correctional facility. Dale's handwriting shaky. "It wasn't worth it. They have me teaching shop to inmates. The irony isn't lost." She read it once at the truck stop's back door, frost making her breath visible. Then she folded it, dropped it in the dumpster, and returned to the register. Through the window, she could see cars heading toward Millfield, toward the church where she'd once held court, toward the town that continued without her. Some stories end with explosions. This one ended with hammers and saws, with levels showing true, with joints properly fastened. It ended with things built right, the way they should have been all along. In Millfield, that's how things were done now. And in the workshop behind Mercer Hardware, the old donation box sat on its high shelf, lid open, a reminder that some traps are better left obvious and harmless. The town had been rebuilt, stronger for having been tested. The foundation, it turned out, had been solid all along. It just took clearing away the rot to see it. End of Part 3. Complete story concluded.